ago, I watched my first TED Talk in a classroom here at Lakes. It was by a man named Justin Tibbing. In it, he discussed production of power in an integrated format, storing power on site, and reducing our dependence on an inefficient electric grid. His talk, it intrigued me. It inspired me. It made me think about what power is today and what power will be tomorrow. These are some of those thoughts. Power is a part of each of our lives in the most minute facets and in the most grand of enterprises. And each day that passes, this presence grows and spreads into and throughout each of our lives. Yet the means of producing power, storing it, transporting it, and utilizing it have virtually remained unchanged. Today, 132 years after the first coal-fueled power plant began producing electricity, we are still supplying 41% of the world's power by burning coal. Why are we still burning coal? Why are we still devastating our natural environment when we have a seemingly indefinite supply of renewable energy at our disposal that we are not utilizing to its maximum potential? To do this, to utilize our supply of renewable energy to its maximum potential, I believe it's necessary to begin localizing our power production to our cities and towns. By localizing power production, we will reduce the loss of power due to long-range transmission, consequently reducing the cost of power, and reducing our overall use of space by eliminating the need for off-site large power plants, while again preserving our natural environment. This integrated power production system could include solar panels placed on the roofs of homes, businesses, both private and public, solar roadways, and solar windows, which could also provide power, in addition to vertically orientated wind turbines that can be made to occupy vastly less space than traditional wind turbines, but still supply very sufficient amounts of power. The power supplied by these systems would immediately go to meeting the demand of power by the homes or institutions into which they've been integrated, before allocating a portion of the power generated to be stored on site for times of diminished or non-existent power production. If these systems produce excess power, the excess power will be distributed to homes and businesses that cannot meet whose demand for power exceeds the amount of power that they can produce at the time. Overall, by implementing a localized, integrated, and networked power production system, we can reduce the amount of power that we waste. We can more efficiently meet the world's power demands, and we can subsequently reduce the cost of power and preserve our natural environment. To those ends, we need to address our horribly inefficient power transportation system, which annually loses 6% of the total amount of power transmitted in the US. 6% may not seem significant until you consider that last year, in 2013, total power generation for 1 year consisted of 2,360,310 megawatt hours, meaning that the average loss of power was 141,618.6 megawatt hours. To put that in some context, that's enough power to light 269,441,780 standard 60-watt light bulbs. That's a lot of light and a lot of wasted power. So, how do we end it? How do we end inefficient transportation of power? First, we lessen our use of long-range transmission of power. How do we do that? By implementing a localized and integrated power production system, which would minimize, if not completely eliminate, the need for long-range power transmission. However, a localized and integrated power production system cannot solve the problem of power loss within the electrical distribution infrastructure. The power stations, power transformers, and power lines that transport electricity within a community. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we rebuild the infrastructure. We rebuild it with low-resistance conductors, such as graphene and stannine, and superconducting materials and technologies, which will reduce the resistance within the system. By reducing the resistance, we will eliminate power loss and consequently reduce the cost of power. However, even the most efficient power transportation system is powerless against an unavailability of power, which is a very legitimate concern of renewable power production, of production of power via renewable energy sources. The immediate solution to this problem is we store sufficient amounts of power for times of infeasible power production in batteries. While this solution is sound in and of itself, it does not take into consideration the inadequacies of current batteries. Simply put, today's batteries are not good enough to store sufficient amounts of power for tomorrow. We need something better, and that something might be microsupercapacitors, which are simply incredible. They can store massive amounts of power in a very compact form, and they are capable of rapid discharging and recharging of power. This makes them ideal for this purpose. By implementing a localized and integrated power production system, which would eliminate the need for long-range transmission, and by storing sufficient amounts of power within microsupercapacitor installations, we can facilitate the development and implementation of renewable energy production, saving us money and our environment. So now we have a constant supply of low-cost, clean, renewable power. Do we continue to use it inefficiently, or do we use it as efficiently as possible? My vote is for using it as efficiently as possible. To do this, we will have to implement energy or power efficient materials such as graphene and stannine, which would reduce the overall resistance of the system, reducing power lost, reducing the power needed. Another way we can reduce or increase our efficiency in the use of power is to use power management systems. Power management systems is simply software that regulates the use of power in order to conserve power. These systems are already in place, but they're not in place extensively enough. By extending the use of power management systems such as Nest, which is a smart thermostat that learns your behaviors, your patterns in regulating temperature in your home, and accordingly regulates them for you to conserve power. Using these systems, we can conserve power usage and reduce the overall demand for power. Reducing the demand for power will reduce the amount of power that we need to generate. We are the users of power. We are responsible for power. And power, as we know, is decayed, and it is decaying us. So it is time that we rethink power, how we produce it, how we transport it, how we store it, and how we utilize it. This must be humanity's next step. This must be our next step.
Yeah.